birds, people, and the dogs that bring them together. This is episode number 18. My name is Bill, and you're tied to the Woe Post. It's been a few weeks since I talked up my buddy Jake Perry and his guide service and preserve, Superior Upland. But hey, summer's almost here, which means you need to have a plan to start tuning up your bird dog. You have a few options. You can contact Jake and drop your pup off with him and let him do it for you. And trust me, he's going to get it done right. Or you can do it yourself and then test it at the preserve. Once you've got your dog tuned up, contact Jake and he'll put you on some of the best public and private land covers in the UP. And they've got the second annual hen hunt on Saturday, August 3rd, which is a women's preserve hunt including a field lunch, bird processing, and 4 birds. They're also kicking off the Michigan ruffed grouse season with the Banassa Bonfire on Saturday, September 14th. You can register for both events at superior-upland.com. The Braque Francais is described as a breed with a high prey drive coupled with an intense desire to please its owner and a very high level of trainability. This charming little upland dog has a personality and intelligence all its own, and that's what keeps loyal owners attached to their Braques. The term Braque Francais actually refers to 2 distinct breeds that are relatively similar in appearance and function, but differ in size. Originally developed in the 15th century from Spanish pointers and various other European hounds, the breed was later split into 2 groups, the Braque Francais Pyrenees and their larger and less common cousin, the Braque Francais Gascon. This breed's history can be traced back to the original breeders in the southwest of France and the Pyrenees Mountains that perfected the breed over hundreds of years. This smaller French pointing dog was bred to be agile and capable of hunting in the high mountain terrain without tiring. The larger breed is still common in France, but is rarely seen outside of its native land. Today, both the Canadian Kennel Club and the North American Versatile Hunting Dog Association recognize the Braque Francais Pyrenees, and the United Kennel Club recognizes both breeds. The 2 breeds look very similar except for their size. Both are typically liver and white or cinnamon and white and have a sturdy but athletic build and folded, high-set ears. The Braque Francais Pyrenees, the dog we're talking about today, stands from 19 to 23 inches at the shoulder and typically weighs between 38 and 55 pounds. When today's U.S. breeders refer to the Braque Francais, they are generally describing the Pyrenees version, desiring a smaller, sleeker dog with an intense desire to hunt and please. Despite the fact that they superficially resemble small German Shorthairs, Braques are very different than their larger cousins, and a new owner who expects a Braque to behave exactly like a small Shorthair is very likely to be disappointed. Despite remaining relatively unknown and uncommon, there are breeders throughout North America that have turned to the Braque and would not consider hunting with anything else. 2 of those breeders are Keith and Bridgette Leyendecker from Great Lakes Gun Dogs. Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How about yourself?
Great.
Oh, doing great. Thanks so much for being on the show and for giving me some of your time on this Tuesday evening.
Hey, we appreciate talking to you.
Yeah, good to be with you.
Can you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Keith Leyendecker, who's my wife.
Bridgette Leyendecker.
And we're Great Lakes Gun Dogs. We breed the Braque Francais.
We are we call ourselves more a family than a kennel. So we're sort of a family kennel. Our kids and really our extended family are all sort of involved in our breeding program as well.
Awesome. So how many kids?
We got 3 kids, a daughter and 2 boys. Daughter just came back from college the other day, so it's good to have her back in the house.
Although we first got our first Braque when our kids were 2, 4, and 6. So now we've kind of moved up in the world here. So now we're high school and college.
Okay, right on. So you've been working with the Braque Francais for quite a while then.
We have, yeah. It's kind of snuck up on us that it's been a while now. It doesn't really feel like a while in some respects, but yeah, it's been a while, I guess.
About 14 years. Yeah.
Braque Francais, extremely rare breed. So how did you settle on the Braques?
We grew up hunting. My brother and I did, hunting quail in Arizona. And so we've been around dogs. We had all sorts of different dogs growing up. None of them particularly great trained dogs for the upland, but we've always been around bird dogs. And, when we started having kids, I knew I wanted a dog and I had kind of put it off. My brother, it's kind of same stage of life as us, and he had all sorts of mutts around at different times. Some of them trained better than others, but his infant son rolled off the couch and landed on the dog. Dog bit him on the head to some degree, and he got rid of all his dogs. And he went on a search for the right breed for himself, which is the same boat as I was in, which, we had young kids in the house and needed a dog that would work in a house with young kids and around a family, could calm down around the house. We had some GSPs growing up that were wild and didn't always work great in the house. And we had some Britneys and stuff too. But he went on a long search and found an article by Chad Mason that was in Gun Dog magazine, kind of laid out all the qualifications of the Braque Francais, and really it ticked all the boxes he was looking at. And same thing for my family, is that they were, a small, medium-sized dog. They really calmed down in the house. They had an off switch. You didn't have to run them for 7 or 8 miles before they could sit on the couch and watch a football game with you, but they were great in the field. Really a lot of prey drive, a lot of smart hunting ability, but something that worked with you. It's not like a dog where you let it loose in the woods and, before you notice it, it's over 3 rises and you have no idea where your dog is, right? That's not the Braque Francais. So my brother really turned me on to it, and we got our first one and we never looked back. And it's really kind of grown its own legs, and we really have found it to be true, the sales pitch that we read early on there about the Braque. So it really fit well into our family with little kids, and it definitely took up a lot more upland bird hunting than before I had the dogs. So
there definitely had to be a good sales pitch for the wives, though. I mean, I remember the moment when they approached us with this idea, because it was, this is the best dog, but they really don't breed them anywhere. I think at the time there were about 3 breeders that had been established really in the US, minus a couple backyard breedings, maybe. I think the first thing I said to him was, how much do they cost?
Right.
I don't know if we've ever purchased a dog either. I've always had dogs around, and they were usually mutts as well, but my jaw kind of dropped. But, after I picked up my jaw and, we really kind of thought this through and what it would involve. It sounded like, a good opportunity. I wanted my kids to grow up with dogs too. So yeah, we hit snags right off the bat though. Our first dog was not really breedable, and we had to go in a totally different direction. And we realized, and I'm sure like every other breeder realizes, every dog is not going to work out. And that was an interesting point for us in our breeding though, because we got connected with people right off the bat that really kind of set us on our way in this breeding community.
New breeders always need a great mentor, I think. And, I really lucked out with the breeder that I selected to get my dogs from as I build my kennel. She's been phenomenal for me. She's a patron of mine. She listens to the podcast. She calls me all the time. And, so, she's been awesome. She's going to hear me say this. But Bridgette, so you mentioned the wives needed to be sold on these dogs. Do you talk to, let's say, non-hunting spouses at all about the dogs prior to, let's say, a puppy buyer purchasing?
Yeah, sometimes we do. I think 90% of the time, when people reach out, they're the husbands. When it's the wife, sometimes it's going to be a present or something for their spouse, and they really don't know what they're getting into. But when Keith talks to husbands, I think a lot of times he's like, one of the first questions is, does your wife know about this?
Yeah, I think when the wife reaches out, they're serious, right? Because she's already sold on the idea, right? If it's the wife, it's the husband who's trying to figure out, okay, do I want to work through you as a breeder? Is this the right breed for me? Those questions, like, okay, he hasn't even sold his wife yet. So it may or may not happen. But with the wife is reaching out, right? She's like, okay, my husband wants a Braque and he wants a hunting dog. And now I'm trying to get the details on it. We know that usually they're further along in the process. So
A lot of times we'll get on the phone, the four of us, and have a conversation. And so that always works out the best. So, and I think most of the time we try to have, if we get a social media communication or email, we always try to have a phone conversation as well. We want to get to know as much as we can about our customers before we take them on as customers.
You guys are obviously a team here in this kennel endeavor, and I'm going to put you guys each on the spot here for a second. And every breeder has their elevator pitch that basically says, this is what you would want to know about my breed. This is the information about my breed that is going to make it either appealing or unappealing to you. So Keith, I'm going to ask you first to give your, that whatever 1 or 2 minute elevator pitch, whatever it is, that says, this is why you want a Braque Francais. But then I'd also like to hear Bridgette's version of the same thing.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a dog that handles really well in the field, that works with you, hunts with you in the field, is really very intelligent, and is happy to please, loves to please, easy to train, but then also inside the house, can calm down, doesn't tear stuff up, is a pleasure to have around the house, and is small enough to travel easy. It's not a 70-pound dog sitting on your lap. If you like dogs on your lap, and I don't know many people that don't, but they're small enough to have around the house and not knock everything over and make a mess of everything. So, and they're a short-haired dog, which goes a long ways in the woods. At the end of the day, you got a lot less cleanup to do, getting stuff out of their fur and whatnot, which is sometimes a big deal depending upon where you're hunting. And I think it's a pretty good advantage. And they're a blast to have around in the house and in the field. So
I can definitely appreciate the short-haired dog. With my poodle pointer and my small Munsterlander, going to the field when the cockleburs are dry going to the field is always great. It's always getting back to the truck and doing that tailgate check and the cleanup before they get back in the crates is a challenge.
Yeah, I never really appreciated. I mean, it was always part of the sales pitch early on for us too, right? It's like, they're short hair, they don't. But I didn't really appreciate how big a deal that was until I was hunting in South Dakota with a buddy, and he had setters, and the dog ran through a ditch, and he was freaking out. He's down the line, he's freaking out, like tried to stop his dog. And I'm like, what's the deal? He's like, there was cockleburs in that ravine. Yep. He came out the other side, and I didn't realize, but that was hours of work for his dogs at the end of the day. And I really took appreciation to that as he's sitting there with a headlamp, digging out cockleburs, and I'm relaxed, got my dogs all fed, back in the trailer, and ready to crack open a beer or whatever. And he's still working on cockleburs. So I do really appreciate that now after seeing it firsthand in the woods. The other thing is ticks. The short hair, you see ticks easier. They pick up fewer ticks. I was hunting northern Michigan with another buddy of mine. He has a setter, and we get down, we sit on his tailgate, and he's like, yeah, I let my dog sit here, and then all the ticks, once he stopped moving, the ticks all crawl up to his head so I can pull them off. And I checked over my dog. I think I pulled off 2 ticks, and he was at like 38 or something like that. And we covered the same ground. So it's a big difference as far as how many ticks you're going to pick up in the woods too.
And all of those ticks are going to stay alive until they bite the dog. If you're using most flea and tick preventatives, like oral stuff, like I do, I will use like pyrethrum or something like that when they get really bad, and that helps kill the ticks before they bite the dog. But yeah, I hunted Pennsylvania for grouse last fall. Just having the dogs on the ground for an hour and a half or 2 hours, 2 of us would pull ticks off the dogs for a half hour straight. We never counted, but yeah. I guarantee it was hundreds every time we stopped.
As far as changes too, I would encourage you and all your listeners to take a look and pay attention to what tick meds they use. I think some of those oral ones are linked to some neurological issues and seizures. And I don't know all the brand names that do, and nor would I necessarily want to say exactly what they were. Maybe she will, but do your homework. And I would encourage you and warn people. They do have dangers associated with them,
Right.
and they're not great. So
it's important to use something, but make sure you're doing your research on what you're using.
Yeah. Well, maybe when we're done recording, I'll get your opinion on that. Obviously, I get mine from the one that my vet recommends. I don't necessarily do 100% of the research myself. I try to trust the vet to help me out with that. But before we go too far, Bridgette, you're not off the hook. All right. So let's hear your quick elevator pitch.
My elevator pitch, much shorter than that, but of course I cater to a lot of women when I talk to them. So definitely how they function in and around the house is important. They're calm with your kids. And I always said when my kids were 2, 4, and 6, it was just like having a fourth head around, because the puppy and the dog was always around where my kids were at. They were sitting in a cardboard box watching television, then so was the dog. And with the short hair, I know some breeds with short hair still shed a ton, but I feel like we don't have a lot of dog hair. I mean, we have our shedding seasons, but it's definitely better than some of your long-haired breeds. And you can definitely keep that at bay much better, especially with robot vacuum. And then that's got a whole bunch of other stories when you have dogs too. So
yeah, their intro to the Roomba can be pretty interesting.
Yeah, during COVID, when I was doing school online, I was training a puppy as well, and we bell train at the beginning with most all our dogs. But I was on with a class, and I heard the bells go off, and I'm like, oh no, bad timing, and nobody else was around. And I heard the bells again, and I had at least 10 minutes before I could get off and go check. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw that the robot vacuum was going. And I'm like, oh no, I have a feeling how this is going to end. And it sure did.
Oh, no. Oh, wow.
We had a number 2 in the middle of the living room, and the robot had gone through and around. And so,
you had
so we
streaks.
dissected that vacuum that night pretty well. But a couple of our customers had funny stories about those too. But let's see, what's the rest of my pitch? Oh, okay. So the Braques are really affectionate too. So when I'm talking to moms, I know they can relate. I know Keith doesn't like using this word, but they are really Velcro dogs. And with moms, we understand, because, the dogs will follow you into the bathroom. If you're a mom of toddlers, you get it. They'll follow you into the bathroom, and they'll follow you into the kitchen. And they're just always there. And I think guys appreciate that a lot more. Sometimes women are like, I just want to go to the bathroom by myself, and if you shut the door on them, then they just sniff under the door, and you just hear the nose under the door the whole time. So, but it really is a positive. I mean, they are really affectionate, and most people love that about the breed. I think everybody loves that about the breed. And as a whole, they come in a smaller package, than most, a nice medium-sized dog.
All right. I'm ready to buy one.
I don't like that term Velcro dog, because to me, it's kind of got a connotation of like a neurotic dog that can't be away from you. And I don't think that's an accurate description necessarily either. And, maybe some people have a picture in their head of the Velcro dog that they couldn't go anywhere without, and it was neurotic in that sense.
Not in a needy way, I mean, but they just love being around you.
It's not going to destroy your door if you close them out of the bathroom, right?
Sure.
And that's the picture I have in my head, is like, oh no, I'm away from you, I'm going to freak out. And that's not at all the case. So
it's not an anxiety thing as much as it's a FOMO thing, right?
Right. Yes.
That's it.
But I bet they're not Velcro when they're out in the field, are they?
They are not, no. And you get a range with their range, right? You get a variability with their range. But in all cases, even some bigger working dogs, they still work with you and check in and know where you're at and hunt with you, right? But you do get some variability in what they range between individual dogs, which you probably see in every breed, right? But I saw, I forget whose it was, but it was in a magazine that kind of characterized them, and it was between like slowpoke and ass on fire range, right? And I think Braque's, a lot of them tend towards, somewhere near the ass on fire to, really comfortable working speed. Yeah, they are great in the field.
It always amazes me how fast Brocs are. We have some dogs that are just quick. Yeah.
Do they look quick when they're in the field? Or, when I think about the different dogs that I've had an opportunity to hunt over, or just looking at them at our NAVDA training days, or, things like that. And I watch my small Munsterlander, and she looks like a maniac because they're small dogs, and everything moves quickly with a small dog. And, she turns quickly and everything. But then I'll watch a Braco run after her, and the Braco obviously just looks more deliberate. It looks slow, like kind of it's lumbering across the field as it quarters. But one thing that I've noticed, the Bracos cover the same amount of ground. They just don't look like they're going fast to do it.
Because their legs are longer. Yeah. So
sure,
a lot of dogs, I think they look fast. It depends on what day you're in the trip. If it's just a test, right? That's a pretty short thing, and they're going to most of them are going to look pretty fast, right? But if you go to South Dakota and you're in the plains, day 2, they'll settle into, covering a lot of ground, but it's still not the ass on fire. Hey, I'm first 30, 45 minutes or something of a hunt. You get them working into a pace where they cover a lot of ground, but they're efficient. And it's not really an all out sprint. So, sometime in day 2, usually it depends on how old the dog is, right? Sometimes they pick that up a little sooner, right? You get into this where they're working at a really good pace still, but it's more like 75-80% of speed rather than full on balls out sprinting. But they'll do that too, but not all the time. And it's really interesting depending on which dog it is. Some of them, as soon as they get this first hint of a scent, right, they'll slow way down. It's like, hey, I know something's around someplace. And they'll work their pace down a notch until they kind of get the birds worked out, and then go on point. But it's really interesting to see our dogs do that. Is like, oh, I got a sense of something. I'm going to slow way down, so I'm not bumping anything, but I'm figuring out where exactly they're at. So it's interesting to see them do that too.
Are you seeing that in a more mature dog, like, 3 or 4 or 5-year-old dog, or are you seeing that in your puppies?
Oh yeah, I see that in puppies. Year-old dogs. My youngest now is 2, and she definitely does that, and she's definitely on the speedier side in general. But she'll slow right down. She's like, I caught something. I'm going to figure out what that was. And historically, Brocs mature pretty fast a lot of times. I've talked with people like, hey, I've had full on, guide dogs fully finished at 7 months old in the grouse woods. So I think historically a lot of them are pretty good, pretty young.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that, was, talking about the average age of maturity on these dogs, at least as they start to come into their own. They look for that light switch and hunting aptitude. I know with my Munsters, they're later maturing dogs, generally speaking, and people will argue with me about that, but I'll say every time that stereotypes exist for a reason. So, and I don't think my current small Munsterlander female is an exception to that. She's a late maturing dog. Although at 2.5, she's really starting to come into it now, and things are starting to get really fun. I've had a lot of the French breed breeders tell me the same thing, that their dogs are typically a little bit slower to mature. So it sounds like the Braque Francais and the Brittany are the two that are more likely to mature earlier.
Yeah, I've seen some good maturity out of our dogs at under a year. I've been really happy with, they're great huntable dogs at a year and under, and handle birds well, right? I mean, you got to get a lot of exposure still, but they're out there hunting, and they point, retrieve, water retrieves. So my youngest, she had 2 water retrieves on pheasants in December, and working great, honoring. Yeah, and she was, I don't know, a year and a half of that, whatever that was then. And so I was really, really, really pretty happy, and covering ground smartly at a young age, and working the wind, working a good distance from me in the field. I've had one dog that she was working too close when she was young, and as she's matured, she kind of opened it up to be more in that kind of the correct range for me. That's probably the only dog that I've had where I'm like, I was happy to see her mature into that, much past a year and a half, where I wasn't exactly happy with what she was doing in the field, but most of them pretty young from that perspective. So, and I think I don't know if this is why or not, but I think the Braques are pretty intelligent and pick up on stuff pretty quick a lot of times. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. Not that other dogs are not intelligent if they're late bloomers, but yeah, that's been our experience.
What's that range that you're looking for?
In the grouse woods, like right on the edge of visibility.
Sure. Yeah.
Right there where I know where they're at. I can see them, 50% of the time as they go through the woods. When we're at Sharptail, I like it a little further, right? 50, 60 yards, up to 100 yards, depending upon, the cover still. But I like to have them open it up on Sharptail. And then pheasant, right? It gets thick again. And then they'll come in and work, within shotgun range. Is where I liked them. But we've got a lot of people that hunt Huns out in the prairies too, and like they want their dog at 300 and 400 yards, and are happy to have their dogs run out there too. And so the Braque kind of covers the whole gamut between all those species.
So yeah, you're hunting your dogs pretty tight then, pretty close.
Yeah, in the grouse woods. That's what I like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can always tell when they're close to a porcupine that way too.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of risks that get mitigated by a closer range, certainly. And I'm kind of like you. I prefer a closer working dog, and terrain and vegetation get a vote, of course. But even out in the prairies or in the fields, I like my dog to be well inside of 150 yards. And now, as my female is kind of coming into her own, she's pushing that envelope a little bit, which is honestly, it's fine by me because that's super easy to rein her in.
Yeah.
I'd almost rather let her push it, and then we can figure it out later. We'll see what she does in the grouse woods this fall. We're going to spend some time up in the UP for a little bit. We'll see. Last fall, she liked to quarter about 40 to 50 yards out to either side, but she was only crossing about 5 yards in front of me. I thought that was pretty cool, but my short hair friends were like, "What's your dog doing?"
Yeah, and that's that one dog I mentioned. She was doing about that, right? She was crossing like 5, 6 yards, 10 yards in front of me, and I'm like, I was happy to see her open it up a little bit as she got a little older.
Sure. Do you think you did things differently with her as a puppy that may have had a downstream effect of keeping her in a little bit tighter?
I don't think so. I think it's her personality in general that led to that. She's really super easy handling, and she really definitely wants to please. But I think she's also maybe not as, I don't know, outgoing is the right word or not, but I can see it bleed over into other parts of her personality that align with her range.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I don't think we did really anything different. And actually, I've got a sister of hers from a different litter, and she's similar in some ways and definitely different in that she's her range is a little bit longer, and she's just about as easy handling, but not quite as easily handling. But I can see the differences in personalities a little bit relate to that range too. So,
Gotcha. Now, Bridgette, are you hunting too?
I don't really bird hunt with them, although I've gone out big game hunting. I pretty much stay closer to home. So when they go hunting, and all the kids go with my husband, it's just a break for me. They take the dog trailer and the dogs out, and I get a weekend to myself. But I have gone out with them. And our Braque club, we have had events. We've had quite a few events up in Grayling, Michigan, for the breed club. And that's fun to be there and, meet the guys and get a picture of 25 Braques together. That's amazing. And so a lot of times I'll go out and walk with them. And the weather in Michigan is just brutal sometimes when it's bird season.
Yeah,
I'm a big city girl from Vegas.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Although I've been in Michigan longer. But yeah.
I should have been more choosy in the times I brought her.
I thought you were going to say something else.
The times I've taken her to the field, maybe we didn't have the highest bird contact, or it wasn't the best temperatures always when I drug her along. So maybe I made mistakes that way, but she's gone with us. But finding good grouse in Michigan isn't always super easy, and I haven't been the best finder of cover in the past, and sometimes it's hit or miss. So if you're taking somebody new, make sure you're taking them to your money spots where you're going to have birds. So.
You just got to blindfold them on the way in, right?
Right. That's right. Yeah. If they're not blood relatives, then.
Grouse hunting is one of those things. I mean, we count flushes, not birds in the bag.
Right.
Right. And, a good grouse hunt is, however many flushes per hour, whatever your metric for success is.
I do love seeing my kids competitive over, who's shooting first bird, and their cousins shoot too. So my niece is like, I got a bird first before my daughter, that's kind of fun to see that they're excited about that too.
You got to keep talking about the women hunting, because my wife listens to this and she does not come out hunting with me. So all that other stuff about how you're not into it is going to get edited out. Do you see yourself as more of the kennel master?
That's a good title. I like that.
There you go.
Yeah, I definitely, one thing I love doing is, researching how to raise a great dog, starting from puppy and starting in the womb, really, the different things that you can do with your dog while the puppies are still in utero, and, anywhere from, biosensor to when they are 3 days old, to the importance of what you're doing during that early socialization period. I love always looking for more, what else do we need to be doing? Seeing what other people are doing. And that's fascinating to me, how all of that works into having a good dog. So.
And the medical stuff too. She's spent some time. We have a great vet here, and they put on clinics for different stuff. And
it's actually a teaching hospital from Michigan State.
And so she's gone to some of their medical clinics about how to rescue puppies during whelping process, and how to give some good medical care to puppies that are in danger, and what they really need to thrive in those environments. So she's done a lot to educate herself in the whelping process, and we've had better results, I think, because of all of her work in that area and making sure that we can deliver puppies safely and healthy and keep them healthy and know when we got to get them intervention and tube feeding. And there's a lot that goes into all that, knowing all that, and be willing to, stick needles in puppies and put water or put saline under their skin and tube feed them, and all those stuff that goes into that. And she's definitely taught herself enough to be really knowledgeable and helpful in those situations. But yeah, she really has changed a lot of how we go about all this, and the science behind what puppies need in their development and what the best ways we are uh, to change in our room or whatever to get them that stimulation that they need at the times that they have to have it, right? So that development, there's certain periods of times where if they don't get that stimulation, right, they're much harder learning those skills and coping with things as they get older, and it's really critical to get that to them. So she's really brought a lot of value, and I think to our kennel with the stuff that she's learned and applies to that. And she's also much better at communicating with customers and like remembering people's names and all that stuff. So,
but I think even before you can put all of that into a puppy, it really all starts with the health of the dogs too. So that's one of my big soapbox things too, is, I want to make sure we're feeding our dogs. I mean, I don't mean like the best, most expensive dog food that's out there. But the best recipes that, the least controversial ingredients and all of that good stuff. So, and, once you look at a dog food, it doesn't mean that dog food recipe is never going to change. They don't have to tell you when they change things in dog foods. So I want to feed our dogs what is good for them. And we have also a pregnancy diet for when the dogs, first go into their heat cycle until they're done nursing. They get a little bit different diet. And so I think that has a big effect on the whole pregnancy and nursing and all of that process. And then even to when, they're adult dogs and they're working dogs, that has an effect on their performance as well as their health and nutrition. So we try to guide our customers in that way too. We're not telling them what to feed, but we're teaching them how to look for what you're looking for in a good dog food. So
there are some great clinics out there about that. I know Dr. Ruth Ann Lobos runs one where she kind of translates she teaches how to translate what's on the back of the dog food bag without, obviously, she works with a certain brand, and that's her thing, and that is what it is. But her clinics have been very brand neutral, at least the ones that I've been to. So if you're ever around one of hers, definitely worth going to.
Yeah, I'd love that.
What do you think are some of your best practices by way of whether it's puppy socialization or emergency preparedness, in the kennel around whelping or new puppies or whatever?
Well, I'll start with one of the first ones that starts is, with biosensor. It's actually, are you familiar with it? I don't know.
I am. Yep.
Yeah. A program that came out of the U.S. Army, and they're training with dogs. And I think that the science behind that is really good and helps prepare our dogs. So it's one thing that we do, and I think makes a difference in what we produce. So that's one of the early ones. You want to talk about other ones?
Yeah, I mean, like you said before, there are so many different periods where they're either learning from their environment or learning from mom or learning from people around them. So just understanding what those different phases of socialization are. And that's what we tell our customers too, is that it's really important that you pick, first, your breeder, know their practices, because your socialization starts there. Everything that they do there is really important with your dogs. Then you're going to pick your breeding pair. And then finally, at that point, which dog in a litter, it almost doesn't matter, So when we have people here and they're hanging around for hours looking at which puppy, we know it really doesn't matter much in the end. But we also, we do noise desensitization and all kinds of other things. But I think one of the biggest thing that you've talked to people about too is when you can be as prepared as you can be But when things are out of your hands, you having the best vet that you can, like we love our vet's office, and they've been so available for us that they're primarily breeders that go there. But when I found out that they have breeders that come from across the state to see them, I thought, well, there's something pretty special about them. So, and we can see why. We've been there for a long time, and it is like a reproductive clinic as well. But they've been available for us, I don't know how many times, at midnight or 3 a.m. for C-sections. And, when something just wasn't right, we have their personal phone numbers for text messaging. And, I don't know how many do that, but it's nice to know that they're there when things are kind of out of your control, at that point too. So, but they've really helped prepare us for what to do at home also. So.
And we've got it kind of not dialed in for their environment at different stages through the litter. We've got a small area that we can control the temperature on, and that's pretty important when they're young, right? They can't control their body temps, and it has to be pretty high. So we've got a good area we can control the temps on. We've got the heat plate in the floor. We got the pig rails to make sure they don't get squished. But that same space then transitions throughout the litter to really supply the things that those pups need to as they grow, right? So at some point in time, that comes out, and they get bigger space to play with, more toys and more access. And we give them a den-like environment, and then access for mom to come in and out and look at the pups, but also get away from them. And also, we can extend that again to give them a space to start eliminating in, so that they figure out, hey, I sleep here, I play here, and then I poop over there. And they start learning that not to mix those, at a pretty early age, and makes that whole process for house training a lot easier. But also the extended environment that we have for them, we can bring in a lot of stimulus as they're growing, different floor types. And we work pretty hard when they're young and nursing to give them a surface that has traction. And actually, I've seen more research since we started doing this about how important that is for hip dysplasia, right? That the slipperier it is, the harder it is on all their joints. And the more traction they have, the easier they have moving around and nursing. So making sure that you have good traction under them when they're really little, I think is important. But our greater environment, she's been adding stuff to it all the time to give them different sensations, balls, and different levels of foam, and stuff that move. I used to, like when I got a really young puppy, I used to be able to put them on kind of a wobble board. I taped a Frisbee to the bottom side of a puppy-sized board. And if they went to go step off the edge, it would wobble, and it made them uncomfortable. So then they stayed still. And that's how I could introduce whoa at first, because I'm like, well, they're on a board that they're unstable with, and it's moving, and so they aren't comfortable, so they stay still. And then I just introduce whoa. But now we've introduced so much stimulus to them that they're on stuff that moves all over the place, and they're totally comfortable with it. So I've had to change my training technique, but I think it's been good because it gives you a dog that is comfortable in more environments, and more chaotic environments, and in stuff that moves around. They're just better off dog in how comfortable they are in more stressful environments. So that single change kind of is like, hey, that makes a difference, because these dogs, I can't do that whoa board training on anymore because they're totally comfortable in an environment that moves like that. So
we kind of learn as we go too. Of course, I think everybody probably does, but one of our younger dogs, when the sun goes down and she can see her reflection in our glass doors, she started barking at it. And I thought, oh, they can never see themselves. So we have a mirror in the whelping box now, so that we introduce it when they're a few weeks old. That's when they can see. But And so it's really funny to get the puppy's reaction on video when they first have that mirror placed in front of them. So,
and that is something that we've done this a lot now, and we do continually learn like how to make it easier and how to do it better. And so we've definitely changed things over the years, and I think for the better, and that's kind of advantageous for us that we've really been able to learn and apply those things to make better dogs and better litter experiences for them. So
That's really interesting, and it's really cool to hear how invested you guys are in each of the litters. And I'm sure you already know as breeders, but every minute that you put into those puppies as a breeder is worth hours of that puppy buyer's time down the road. So it's really cool that you thought about that, where your one of your females saw its reflection and you said, "Oh, I can socialize puppies on reflections," and maybe puppy buyers are not going to hear barking at night when the dog looks in the window, right?
yeah, and I think a big part of what we do is we feel responsibility not only or not just to people that might buy our dogs, but we feel responsibility to the dogs that we produce, kind of first and foremost, because it's a life, not that we're creating the life, right, but it's a life that we've kind of planned and put into place for a specific purpose, and we certainly feel responsibility for that dog, and what home we put it in, and what experiences we expose it to, and how much time we put into it. Right? We've got responsibilities towards that dog's life and existence, and we do our best to make sure it has a good outcome for the rest of its life. So.
Can you talk through your interview process with potential puppy buyers?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got a questionnaire, and then we have a conversation, and then we have a deposit form, and it usually goes in that order. Sometimes it starts with a conversation, but it always involves a questionnaire, which goes through a couple things. It kind of starts out with, "Tell me about your shotguns," right? Because most hunters can go on for a while about shotguns, right? And other people can say, "Yeah, I'm a bird hunter," right? But you kind of know someone by what they can talk about with their shotguns. Maybe not everybody talks about their shotguns, but if you can't say a couple things about your shotguns, chances are you're not much of a hunter. But it goes through, what's your history with training? What kind of capabilities do you have in your training? What is your household like? What's your setup going to be? Do you have access? Not that you have to have 10 acres of field to be able to train birds, but what are your access to water, to fields? What's your history of training? What's your household? Do you have kids in there? Whatnot? Just, we want to know those things, so that people are going in. What type of hunting do you do? How much hunting do you do every year? Are you a member of NAVDA? Do you commit to a NAVDA natural ability test at the very least? And what are you looking for in a dog? So two things we're trying to get at those questions are, what are your training chops? What's your plan for is in the house? It is a part of your family. Our dogs are part of our family, and we want to sell to people that want a dog as part of their family. If they're like, "Yeah, I got to set up in the back pole barn, he's got to run over there, I'm going to pull him out in September," right? That's not where we want to send our dog to. We also get a lot of, "Hey, I'm super active. I take him mountain biking, and we go here, there, and everywhere, and we'll give that dog a great life, but we're not hunters." Like, that goes back to some of the things we're talking about. We feel responsibility to the dog, and its innate desire is for hunting, right? And if they don't get to exercise that, we're mindful to that.
Not to say we have been 100% over the years. We recognize the fact that once in a while you will find a dog that maybe isn't as well suited, and it's really even hard to say that, because then you're saying that 8 weeks, what a dog is going to be like for the rest of its life. because we've seen some of the Braques mature a little bit later, where at first we didn't think that they were really into birds that much, but we sent them to somebody that ended up working with them, and they were great dogs. But we have sent some dogs to non-hunting owners and actually most of the non-hunting owners we have sent them to are still taking them to fields and exposing them to birds, and they're just not shooting them.
Yeah, one of them we just got pictures from. He's actually a photographer in
New
Zealand, and he's like, "Hey, New Zealand, I don't hunt. Guns are tough here, but he's like, he'll get work on pheasants every day." And so, his environment is such that I'm okay with that. That dog gets to exercise a lot of his hunting instincts, and he sent us a bunch of awesome pictures of him pointing birds, and he's got a pretty good life, and he gets to exercise at hunting. So those types of environments, we're happy to sell a dog into, and I think we probably want to kind of formalize. I'd like to take one non-hunter in every litter, maybe that we either place a dog with or picks last, to have that outlet, right? We think most litters you're going to be on a bell curve of some type, and prey drive is going to be on that. And I'd be okay if out of every litter, the dog with the least amount of prey drive goes to a non-hunter. I think that's not a bad scenario. But I think we got off topic a little bit. Exactly.
No, that's really interesting. What are some of the non-hunting activities then that you would ask about, or you would really look for in a puppy buyer? Because we all know it's not about hunting. It's about that mental stimulation that dog needs, right? And our dogs just happen to have a desire and aptitude to hunt.
Yeah. So I still would look for people that want to at least be willing to test an NA. And I think we've had some of that. People are like, hey, I'll go test NA. But I don't hunt. So they're open to exposing that to people that are intentional about training. Some people, they do get interested in other tests. Like, hey, I want to go run some tests, but I don't really want to hunt. Those are the type of people that I would look for. Or people that like, hey, I do mountain bike a lot. I want to bring my dog mountain biking, or I hike and I want to bring my dog hiking with us. So people that are active, people that are getting it outside, and
we've had some therapy dogs too, actually, a couple.
Yeah.
Really? Now, how did that work? Did the placement the trainers or the placement company find you guys, or did you find them?
No, I think that people found us that wanted to certify their dogs for therapy.
They had a couple had trained a couple others already. We've had 2 that have gone to therapy homes.
Okay. So these were puppy buyers that through the interview process, you learned that they were interested in training that dog for placement in a therapy environment.
Yes. Yeah.
I think they weren't looking to get rid of the dog. They were looking to certify it and work the dog in a therapy environment.
Okay, sure.
Them into therapy environments.
They're like, hey, I care about kids in hospitals. If I can get the dog certified, I want to bring it into the hospital, expose kids to it, and bring them therapy through my certifications with the dog.
Sure. Yeah, it seems like a lot of the French breeds would be great for that. The Braque Francais, the Du Bourbonnais, the Braque d'Auvergne, all dogs that are just super sweet, super cooperative, very friendly dogs, right? Yeah, that's really interesting. I haven't heard anybody say that yet. And you guys sent a dog to New Zealand as well?
That's been the fun part, actually, is some of the places that we've sent dogs. One, like, we make friends all over the country. So people have invited us on trips. We did an East Coast trip up to Maine and New Hampshire, and we had some customers that took us on a boat and fishing, and a lot of fun. But we sent one to Hawaii, and by golly, we just had to take that dog and drop him off personally. So
that's a tax write-off too.
But New Zealand also, Hawaii and New Zealand were 2 places where we had to quarantine pups. The dogs had to stay with us for 9 months. The New Zealand one, we weren't able to because of timing, do that quarantine and take the dog out. But boy, that would have been a good trip too.
But that dog that went to Hawaii, that was tough because we kept that pup and raised it till it was like 9 months old, and you have to do the whole rounds with the vaccines for rabies.
You did NAVDA too, right?
And I ran her in NAVDA, and she was the sweetest, best dog, and it was really hard to
give her up.
To give her up, and so I hunted her with her in the fall, and she did great in the woods, and it was tough to hand that dog off, but
when you have one of the good ones and you develop a relationship with it, I think even if you planned on that dog being homed as a started dog later on, it's still not easy.
Hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. Yeah.
We got to hunt in Hawaii though. That was interesting. Very different.
What did you hunt there?
Had pheasants and a bird called Franklin's and Merkles.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty unique environment for bird hunting, and they have a lot of different birds. But it's also it looks, at least where we hunted, it looks like lush, rolling, not that hard to hunt. There wasn't a big overhead canopy, and the brush wasn't crazy, but underneath that is a bunch of volcanic boulders.
Lava. So it's really tough on dogs' pads. That's one thing we had to do for the customer was toughen up the pads before we brought the dog over with some special cream or whatever. But
tough foot. And if you ever look to go there and want to bird hunt, invest in some like soccer shin splints, because it's like a war zone trying to walk through that stuff. You get beat up and banged up, and it was tough. So.
The chaps don't cut it.
Chaps don't cut it because you're banging your shins on volcanic boulders that you don't see in the grass. So it's.
Also, the other thing that was interesting was there's a ton of seeds. I don't know if it's just the time we were there. So the customer that we had there had a couple other Braques already, and he goggled his dogs. So instead of getting seeds just stuck under their eyes, they wore goggles when they hunted. So that was interesting.
And I tried goggles on my poodle pointer one year because pheasant hunting, his eyelids just got wore out from just from the thick reeds and cattails and all that, just the way he was going through. So I got some rec specs and I put them on the dog, and once I got him used to them, they did great. After 2 or 3 hunts, though, you couldn't see through those goggles at all. I looked at them. I saw how scratched up they were. Now, they give you a few extra lenses, but they're not cheap to replace those extra lenses. And I was thinking to myself, if these things are only going to last a few hours of hunting, and then I don't remember how much you expect the lenses were, but let's say they're $15. It's like, I'm going to spend $15 on these, every other hunt. It gets expensive quickly. But I put him back on the dog, as scratched up as they were, and he didn't slow down at all. He did not care, and there's no way he could see through these things. But I think these just all knows when they're in that thick, heavy stuff. They're moving so fast and it's so thick, they can't see anyway. I don't think they're all nose.
You have to see that, definitely. They mostly knows, and as long as they can get through the woods, and it doesn't matter. Fun fact about your license in Hawaii, though, is it does come with a turkey tag, one turkey tag. And something that should be on everybody's bucket list is shooting a turkey out of the air. It is definitely the most fun I've had, shooting something out of the air. So I don't know. I think some rough grouse shots I've had rival it, but it's definitely satisfying.
Ron Bame's got a funny story about that. So if you ever reach out to him, or if you talk to him through your brother or whatever, ask him the story about the first time he went turkey hunting. He's got a great story about that, and why he doesn't turkey hunt anymore, because he won't ground swat a bird.
Oh.
But I won't ruin it for you. He actually talks about it on one of his podcasts too. I don't remember what episode it is, but worth listening to. Very funny story. All right, Keith. So since you brought it up, tell me about your shotguns.
Well, I've got a couple matching Franke aluminum frame over and unders. I got my daughter the Squire set, so she's got matching 28 gauge barrels and 20 gauge barrels, and I have a matching set to that. That's 20 gauge, but not the Squire. And unfortunately, I can't shoot it worth a darn because it doesn't have enough drop on it. So I've been looking at ways to remedy that, but I shoot it. I have shot a gas operated, actually Weatherby made it. It was also at that time matching to my kid's youth Weatherby SA08. And it's just a black, nothing special gun, but it fit the budget at the time. But it's always fun shooting a matching gun with your kids in the field. And so that thing broke and they don't make it anymore. They don't make the parts for it anymore. So now I've got a Benelli ultralight. Because if you hunt in South Dakota and you're putting 18, 20 miles on after sharptail, a big heavy gun weighs you down after a while. So I really enjoy. It's still a 12 gauge, but it's light as a lot of 20 gauges. So I like that. That's a fairly new addition to my gun rack. And I grew up with a Featherlight from. The name just escaped me, but the pump action where it ejects out the bottom.
Browning, right?
Well, it's not a Browning. I think Browning made one like that, but it'll come to me in a little bit. But,
okay.
Yeah. So I grew up with that and still have that. And when I was a kid, I could rack that pump pretty quick with dubs in Arizona. I never hit a whole bunch with it. It's really light. But that's the current stable in the shotgun room right now of mine.
Okay. That's interesting to hear. So what a potential Braque Francais puppy buyer would have to describe for shotguns. But now I have an idea of what direction you're going.
And it's pretty open-ended. I just want to hear about it, right? If they're like, if they can't name a shotgun brand and talk about it for, a couple sentences, because we used to get a lot of people like, I hunt. I used to hunt with my dad in, 78. And so we just wanted a little more, get to it and like, do you really hunt? Do you still hunt? Are you going to use this dog for hunting? Or do you just want a good looking French dog that has a special name that your wife can parade around town? Right. So that's really what we kind of wanted to distinguish between customers that came knocking on our door.
Sure. Yeah. It's a great vetting question. Absolutely. So I actually have 2 of those Weatherby SA08s for my kids, and my daughter still hasn't. It's a little big for my daughter. I bought them maybe a little bit ambitious when I bought them. I think my kids were like 4 and 5. And not ready for a recoil operated 20 gauge, certainly.
Yeah.
But my son took his first turkey with his this year on Youth Day here in Indiana. So I was super proud. Now we're shooting, 20 gauge Magnum loads on a recoil operated gun. It's still, it sucks up a little bit, but it's still a recoil gun. It still hits pretty hard. So I had to bungee that shotgun down to the tripod that he was shooting off of so that we didn't lose control of the gun. And he did a great job. I only made him shoot it maybe 5 times total. I let we had to pattern it, of course, and then 1 shot at 1 bird, and he filled his tag, and now he won't have to shoot it until it's time to pattern it before next season. So
yeah, that SA08 I thought was a great gun, and anytime somebody asked about a youth model, I pointed in that direction because that gas operated, it does suck up some recoil, spreads it out a little bit, and it was a light gun, and I thought it was a great youth model. So
yeah, maybe a lighter gun would be a little break action single shot or something like that, but that's going to hit pretty hard with Magnum loads. So
anything that those break open, like unless you make it like 8 pounds, right? It's going to hit hard. There's no give in those break open guns. So
yep. Now he sees me take my over unders out, my double guns out when I go upland hunting, and he's mentioned, when I'm ready to get a double gun. I want a side by side. And I'm like, oh my goodness, kid, there a good side by side is way more expensive than a good over under. So I
Yeah.
told him, well, maybe we can talk about how I can help you buy your first, good side by side. But I think that's going to be your purchase when you're ready to do that.
And I like that Benelli Ultralight, but it is light enough that it's kind of rough at the end of a sporting clays day.
Yeah, that's a field gun. That's not a range gun.
Yeah. So I guess I need another shotgun then for sporting clays.
Exactly. You're welcome. See? Oh, so what do you guys have going on this year for the kennel?
So we just sent a litter home this past weekend for Reagan, and it was a great litter. A lot of good puppies out of that, and a lot of good customers. We always have a good time sending them home. We've got one more litter this fall planned with Phoebe, and looking forward to that. What is it? Is that her third?
Yes.
That's her third litter. And they're both really good moms and have produced some great dogs. It's kind of a bummer that her litters have kind of fallen over some of the hunting season. So I lose her for a good portion of the hunting season, which kind of bums me out. But I try to make up to her with her and take her out at the end of the season. So she got on grouse last year, and we got a put and take pheasant put in there too, and she got all the time in the field later in the season. So I try to make up to her with her, and she's the one that she handles really well, and I love hunting with her. So I'm glad I can get out with her at the end of the season at least. And I've got a trip planned for South Dakota. If people ask me when is the best time to go to South Dakota, I say, hey, late season is the best time to go. But that's usually because that's not when I'm there. So if you see me on one of those Facebook pages where people ask what time to go to South Dakota, you see me chiming in late season, it's because that's not when I'm there. But I try to split it. I used to go twice to South Dakota, early for sharptails and then later for pheasants. But what we've been doing is I split the pheasant opener. And the first part of the trip is for sharptails and huns, and the second part of the trip is for pheasants. And so I've been doing that, and been a lot of fun. I meet up some other Braque guys coming up from Missouri and hunt with them, and we've been having a good time doing that, and hope to continue doing that in the future. So last year I was able to bring my boys because they had some time off school, but they shortened that trip. That time off for them this year, so it'll probably be minus my kids, but it can be a little longer that way too. So
they need more hunters in the school district decision-making program, apparently.
For sure.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. They had Friday, I don't know if it was Monday off and half a day Friday. It worked out pretty good. It was it's good timing for that. I was happy to bring him. I brought him on a couple different trips over that weekend. And one year it was like really snowy and cold, 10, 15, 20 degrees with 20-mile-an-hour winds and, 4 inches of snow on the ground. And then the year after that, like 65 and sunny. So they kind of had both ends of it, but they did well. I kind of liked being able to do that trip with them at those different times. And then later, here in Michigan, I'm going to do a lot of grouse and woodcock hunting. And I bought a big teepee hot tent and trying to decide if I'm going to do a whole week plus up north and set that up and do that. I've been doing just like 3 and 4 day weekends through the rest of the fall for my Michigan hunting. But I may extend that into a week plus grouse camp. So.
We've also
hot tent sounds awesome. I'm still, regular camping it, and I've got a good sleeping bag, so I stay pretty warm. But a hot tent sounds great.
Sounds nice, right? Yeah, I got to get the stove yet, but it's a huge tent. Actually, I haven't put it up yet. It's like 16-foot diameter. And I swear the whole thing together weighs probably 75, 80 pounds, but
Sure.
I'm not backpacking with it. So that's all right. So I'm excited to try that out this year and um, spend some more time in a tent. So
Can you put 5 or 6 dogs inside the hot tent?
I probably could, but the trailer, I've got a dog trailer and that works pretty good for
Sure. Yeah.
managing dogs and letting them sleep. It's not so great to haul hunting through the grouse woods though. Um, it's because you're going, especially if you're looking for new spots, you're like going down a 2-track, it gets tighter and tighter. The further you go with these 2-tracks, right? They get tighter and tighter to the woods around them. And then there's a tree across the middle of it. And now I got to back up all the way with this trailer on the back. So it does limit, where I can go. But I think I'm going to have a different rig for hunting out of Michigan this year. I got a cap for my truck and I'm going to build boxes and I'll see if I can get, I'm sure I can get 4. I don't know if I can get 6, but I'm sure I can get 4 in there. So
I had a cap on my previous truck. I had a cap and ran, the kennels, ruffling kennels on the inside. And that's the way to go. Of course, I'm only hunting 2 dogs right now, so that it's pretty simple. Same thing. I built a set of wooden drawers that were really nice. I didn't lose as much space as some of the commercial drawer brands that are out there because of the shape and the way they have to fit in there. I was able to build it custom to my truck bed, and I didn't lose any space at all, or inches maybe. But now with the truck that I have right now, I thought I'd get a kayak rack and be able to do more waterfowl hunting. So I have a tonneau cover and kayak rack, and that is not at all the way to go. So that's going away, and I'm getting a cap back for my truck, and I'll be able to, if your truck's open in the back, you have to be really well organized. You have to be really well waterproofed. Everything's got to be tied down and strapped down all the time. If you have a cap, you can, nobody wants to live like a slob, but you can just throw things in there if you need to and not really worry about it.
Yeah, it's a lot more, you get a lot more usable space and for, layers or, ammo and managing all that stuff is a lot easier. So
yeah.
I've got the Ford Maverick and it's a lot smaller and shorter. So
Sure.
I'm curious how it's going to work out, but I got an idea. I think those commercial drawers by Decked or whatever, they don't have one for the Maverick yet. So I think I'm going to end up the same way. I'm going to do my own drawers and I think 2 oversized boxes. And I know I can get at least 4 dogs, but we still have it around between my dad or my brother and full size, you run dog boxes the length of the bed and you get them 3 wide. You can get 6 dogs in that pretty easy inside a cap without having to buy aluminum dog boxes custom built for that,
Right.
So it's worked out good that way if you need to hunt 6 dogs out of one truck, but.
Yeah, 6 dogs with a big tent like that and a stove in a Maverick. You're going to be playing some Tetris trying to get that figured out. But I think you can do it. I'm confident you can do it. So,
I may haul the trailer up to, for at least the sleeping portion of that. So
yeah. So besides the dog that you had to bring to Hawaii, what are some of the standout dogs that you've had in your kennel?
Yeah, a lot of them have stood out for different reasons. Piper stands out for a lot of reasons for me. She was the dog, I don't know, the first dog we kept from a puppy out of a breeding that we had. And it was first for me on that level of training. And she was really, really personable with people from the get-go, and was a great mom and great in the field. Her range was a little long at sometimes, but she really stood out to me for some of those reasons. And we had a connection that was really good because I had trained a dog previous to that, but I learned a lot on this time around and spent more time on it. So She stands out for a lot of reasons because she was the first dog that we kept from our own breeding, but that dog that we bought was an adult dog, and so she had a lot of great litters too, and a lot of fun and learning for us. And our kids were little, so she stood out for a lot of reasons. We've got two of our breeding females now are from her, and they have a lot of her characteristics as well. But I think have improved on some of those for a number of different ways. And then we've kind of had another line of dogs that we've been trying to keep separate, just to help the genetics of the Braque. Hopefully any Braque breeder out there works and thinks about the genetics of the breed in the United States holistically, and is not selfish about how to do it the easiest way. So we've really tried to say, whatever breeding we do, we want to try to make sure we maintain robust genetics and trying to be wide, right? It's easy to look at a lot of pedigrees in North America, and they all have some of the same dogs, and it makes it tough to keep broad genetic profile, which I think, for the sake of the breed, we need to do for a while. So we have another line of dogs too, and we bought this one female as an adult in France and brought her over, and her line is a little different, but good in a lot of respects as well, just as different respects than the other ones. And so the latest pup that we kept from her, she's retired now. The last one is a favorite of mine for a number of different reasons. She's really beautiful.
Her coloring is a little bit out of the norm of a Braque, because you either see the white and brown or the roan. She's completely solid brown, like no roan at all. So that's very different.
And she's very muscled, and I like her head shape. Braques have a little boxier nose than GSPs, and hers is nice and boxy, so she's really pretty. That shouldn't be high on everybody's list, right? That's how pretty your dog is, but she is aesthetically pleasing, and she's got a real high drive and very high motor, but she handles very well and really attentive. I like her a lot, and she naturally backs, and I think that's the first dog I've had that naturally backs. I've heard a lot of the puppies that we send naturally back, but this is the first one that I've had and kept that backs naturally, and so I'm excited about that.
But she barks at her own shadow.
She does bark at her own shadow. Well, I think she's quieter than her mother in some respects, which is good. But I'm really excited about her. But yeah, if I had to, I don't know. I like all of them for different reasons, and certainly Piper is the dog that kind of established us as a breeder. We did that was the majority of our early litters, and we learned a lot. And our kids were little, and we had a lot of fun. The first litter, the one that she came from, I swear, we'd spend hours and hours. It was in our kitchen, and we just sit around and stare at them for hours on end every day. And
the kids would lay in the whelping box, and there were colored pictures that were taped all over from the kids. And
oh wow, that's great.
A lot of time, yeah.
So she was certainly a special dog to us, and kind of set us down this path the right way.
But we've since changed from whelping in the kitchen. I don't know if I'd recommend that. You spend a lot of time, but it's not the aroma that you want wafting around your kitchen. So we've since built a new house really for the dogs. We needed to move, and boy, we couldn't find that house that had the perfect kennel attached to the side of it. So we built a house and kind of got to do what we want with our kennel. Really probably not what we wanted, but what we could.
All right, Bridgette, I'm not going to let you off that easy though. So are you on Team Piper, or do you have a different dog that stands out?
Well, I think really the matriarch of our kennel is the adult that we bought, that kind of started it all, Piper's mom. And and that was from our friend Brad Boyson, and he brought a lot of the Braques into the U.S. and started breeding early on, so probably about 45 years ago or so. So he deserves a shout out. But he, when we first found out that our dog that we intended to breed wasn't going to be able to be our first breeding female, he was kind of retooling his stock, and he's been our connection to France as well and getting us in touch with breeders. And so he was selling some of his adult dogs, and we bought 3.
We collectively, us and my brother.
His brother, who was also breeding at the time, we brought 3 between the 2 of us. And Bessie was our first dam, and she was a great dog until our first thunderstorm season. And we realized that she was really afraid of thunderstorms. Like so much so that she like powered through a hollow core bedroom door to get away from the sounds. So anyway, she was a great mom, and she had great offspring, amazing offspring, even though we only were able to have a couple litters with her because of the age we bought her. She really started out our kennel. And I tend to like we have 1 male. We imported 2 males at the same time, so that we could kind of raise them for about a year and then pick the one that we wanted to keep. After we've gotten burned, importing, we decided to try that, and that worked out well for us. But I like our male. I really wish we could spend more time with all of our dogs. Having 6, it's kind of a detriment in that way. I don't think you can spend enough time with 6. But I think the males, to some respect, can be even calmer than the females. People ask the difference between the male and female all the time. And we tell people that there's essentially no difference, in hunting. But just that slight difference, I think, is that the males can be a little calmer. I think they mature a little slower too, but
they're also would tend to be not quite as independently minded as some females can be, right? So I would think, make a correlation between, people and dogs. Sometimes females are going to have a mind of their own, and males are going to be just okay to roll with it. So.
Well, it's obvious we each have our own preferences, right? So is there anything else you guys want to throw in here? Any questions that I didn't ask, or, anything you want to highlight about what you've got going on?
Well, Bridgette mentioned him, but just about every breeder in the U.S. has some tie back to Brad Boyson. I do want to say he worked tirelessly to establish the breed in the U.S. He's been a great resource for us and for just about anybody else that has worked to establish it. And so I wanted to give he's got a passion for the breed, and just want to say thank you for all the work he's put into develop the breed, and for the tireless, selfless work of establishing it for other people, and for protecting the breed, and for kind of being its sales pitch for a long time. So
starting really with an empty slate with a rare breed I can just imagine it. What a tremendous responsibility. And think about the options that you have as well.
Yeah. And that is the tact we've really tried to take, is we try to get dogs with as diverse pedigrees as we can, and try to really limit how many common ancestries they had. And so we don't do line breeding. Our male was line bred pretty extensively in Europe. And the guy that we bought him from does a lot of line breeding. And I was okay with that because we're breeding it back to somebody that's totally not related at all and has really uncommon ancestors. But we have really worked hard to be judicious about the dogs that we breed together. And I think that is something that is maybe a little unique to us, is our size and dedication to making sure we do our best to get the right pairings of dogs that make sense for the breed, make sense for the dogs we're trying to produce. I looked through it, the dogs that ended up in our breeding program versus the ones that didn't end up in our breeding program. And I think I told you the other day about 50-50, but really only about 38% of the dogs that we've brought into our house or hoped to keep into our breeding program have made it there. And so, yeah, it's sometimes that's not easy, right? You have a dog, you like the dog. There's a lot of things you like about the dog. It's easy to justify to yourself why you should breed that dog. But we've been fortunate enough to, I think, make most of the right breeding decisions, and had to step away from dogs that we really liked for a lot of reasons, but weren't the right ones to breed. And Bridgette has been a trooper when we've studied out, whether it was across the country, 24 hours away, right? You're getting progesterone tests, and the vet says, okay, leave now and breed, in 12 hours, right? She's hopped in the car, bring the 2-year-old, drive through the night, get to some place to breed, whether it was in Quebec or all the way down at the coast of Texas. And so we've always kind of tried to do what it takes to get the right breeding pairs that made sense for the breed and for the dogs we were looking to produce.
One thing you can always be proud of is making the right decisions for the dog, and removing that kennel blinder off of your face and saying, it's not about whether or not I want to breed this dog, but it's about whether or not this dog should be bred, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you can always be proud of that and always celebrate that as a kennel, I think.
Yeah, it's hard because everybody's like, hey, everybody says my dog is awesome, right? And there's things to love in just about every dog that you have, but I think the more you get exposed to more dogs, the easier it is to make those tough choices about which dogs breed and which ones not to. So, and then the more you educate yourself on structure and what characteristics you want to reproduce, goes a long way in helping you make those decisions. So,
and then knowing what to look for in a stud to fix those deficiencies that every dog, no dog is perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So knowing what to look for in that, let's say in your bitch has certain deficiencies, how to fix that, or at least try to bring back to correct, right? With the right stud dog.
Yeah.
Very, very important. So, I've had you guys on here for a while now. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to close it out however you'd like to.
I would say, hey, if you're into upland hunting, check out Braque Francais. We love them, and we think they're a great dog for the upland hunter. And when you're talking with people, the things that I always encourage anybody, whether they're getting a dog from us or not, is ask to see hunt test results, ask to see the dog's hip test results, eye test results. People that are looking for a Braque need to be able to push and instill good breeding habits on the breeders that they would buy dogs from, right? Market kind of drives those, and if people don't ask, then some people won't do it. And the breed is pretty healthy. The breed has a lot of good characteristics, and we want to keep it that way. So as a market, please help in forcing breeders to make the good choices about health and hunting ability. So that's what I would say.
How about you, Bridgette?
I think every kid deserves to grow up with a dog. The Braque has been, a really different kind of dog in our family, for me especially. And it has been really special for my kids, and being able to breed the dog we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot as breeders and as a family, and I don't think I would change anything if we looked back. So I think that it's really been a benefit to all of us.
How can people get a hold of you if they want to contact you to learn more about Braque Francais or learn more about your kennel or whatever?
GreatLakesGunDogs.com is our website. I probably have to do some updating as far as which dogs are listed there. But also we have a Facebook page, which is usually more updated. So both of those you can find us on, and we don't publish a bunch of stuff to it except for the litters, but there's YouTube videos, and that's how we kind of send out videos to our litters. So if you want to go back and see, a lot of that's on Facebook too, but there's a lot of content back there that you can see our dogs.
As a customer, you'll get a lot of communication with us personally via email and YouTube videos and pictures. You won't necessarily see it as much on our Facebook page, so you got to be a customer of ours. But yeah, you can check out our YouTube page as well and see a lot of the different socialization things that we do with our pups too. So my kids are telling me we need an Instagram as well, so we got to get on board with that.
Everybody's on Instagram, and it's so easy. I don't know. I'm not going to plug for Zuckerberg, but it's easy. Well, guys, thanks so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm glad it went long. I learned a little bit. I do every time, but really appreciate you guys spending your time with me.
Hey, thanks for asking us.
I hope you enjoyed episode number 18 of the Whoa Post podcast. If you did, leave a 5-star review on your podcast directory of choice. Remember to share it with your friends, like and follow on social media, and become a patron at patreon.com/thewhopost. And if you own a bird dog related business and you'd like to advertise on the Whoa Post podcast, you can contact me at bill@thewhopost.com. Stay steady and God bless.